we're going to talk about. On the other hand, we see that medical cannabis is widely implemented, and that's a good thing, and there are even like 2 states that actually look into replacing opioid medication for pain with cannabis. So that cannabis becomes the standard treatment of care for people with pain. That's very novel, and I think that's also an interesting way to look at it. When we swing back to Switzerland, where we have really liberal drug policies and where harm reduction is actually implemented in the drug policy, that means that, for example, we have drug consumption rooms for people who use opioids or inject drugs, and injecting drug use, hepatitis C, HIV, everything has gone back thanks to implementing harm reduction. Something that is not possible here yet. In Switzerland, though, cannabis is still illegal, so we still have this kind of soft prohibition aspect, and it means that everyone who actually uses cannabis makes an illegal action and actually a crime. It's just kind of decriminalized that it's not followed, so the possession up to 1 gram of cannabis with THC is decriminalized. That means it's only getting fined. And what you see on the graph is actually the different states and the fines that were assigned. And all on the right side, the most fines were given in Zurich, that's the state where I grew up, and also Vaud and Geneva, that's the place where Benjamin, the deputy director here, has grown up. So you can see it's really, there are inequalities in the fining system as well. And that goes back to the police presence and also to the priorities of the police, but also on substance use behavior in the public. And the questions that we need to ask is really like, what are we gaining by like fining people for drug use in public or elsewhere, and what do we gain by actually, for example, here in the United States, still putting people into prisons. And a few states that have now legalized cannabis in the United States are discussing whether to release people from prison who previously were assigned to prison just because of cannabis use, and that's for many of our young people not even to imagine, but these are the realities. And one of the main questions that comes up when we talk about regulations is also the minimum legal age. In the United States, it's 21. In Switzerland, we have discussions whether it should be 18 or even younger. It won't go younger. But what we did in our survey once was also we asked people how they want to see cannabis regulated, and there was no consensus, even not among the cannabis users, whether it should be 16, 18, or 21. The reality is, though, that many people start using cannabis, especially recreationally, when they are younger than 21 and younger than 18. And in the United States, it's really inconsistent because medical cannabis can be sold for people at the age of 18 already, but the recreational one is 21. And the situation in Switzerland is actually good. Like, people were bringing up pilot projects, they planned it for like 5 years. And it was brought to the Swiss Ministry of Health, but they said, no, we can't do it. Because in the law there was not an Article 4, but also not an article against pilot projects for recreational use. That means that at the moment we can do research on medical cannabis, but not on recreational. And the majority of people who use cannabis use it recreationally, and most of them with relatively few problems. But now an experiment article will be added to the law that's currently designed, and that's the first step to actually get a pilot project. But the way until legalization goes further, right? So we hope to see it decriminalized at least widely for 2021, but cannot give any prediction for now. I was briefly addressing this global drug survey. That's one of the studies that I'm conducting since 2014. And this is the largest survey on drug use around the world, where we don't aim to say how many people use drugs, so we don't talk about prevalence in certain countries, but we're interested in how people use drugs and what consequences, negative effects, or also benefits are related to use. And as you can see, as of today, the survey is online since November 1st. So we're always online for 8 weeks each year in November and December. And right now, you can all go to Global Drug Survey and take part. And be part of, and add to this 118,000 people who have already taken part this year. So that's a growing number, and we have the survey available in 19 languages, which means that we can ask questions that are otherwise not implemented in national household surveys, and also, most importantly, we reach a wide community of people who use illegal drugs, and they would maybe not trust the general population survey, but they trust us, and that's why they share their information with us, and we believe that this information is important to actually have more honest conversations about drugs that help to especially improve the status of people who develop problems with drugs. And the team behind this survey is Adam Winstock, a UK psychiatrist who actually built this up in 2012, when he had the idea that this survey, which was a music magazine survey, could actually be a global drug survey around the world. And still we are not covering all the countries, but we get more and more people participating also in India and Africa, where we basically have no data on substance use available. So that's a huge advantage. And we work together with a lot of media partners, harm reduction organizations, and the survey has increased from 15,000 to 130,000 participants. We don't say that the number is like the main point, but the more people for a certain region you have, the better, or the more you can say about substance use for a special community. And we have a launch video, and if it plays, I will show you this one now. If you're interested, and everyone who actually uses legal or illegal drugs can take part or has a past experience with drug use. And this year we have two new things. One is a module on cannabis edibles, because we have seen a threefold increase in edible use over the past 3 years among our community that we reach. And the second one is one about cannabis health information. And so we asked the people if labels like this is about don't drive stoned, cannabis use delays your reaction time, and it's associated with a twofold increase in the risk of fatal car accidents. So we asked people if these informations would be on the cannabis packaging, would it make people change their cannabis use? First of all, we want to know, is this information new to them? Do they believe it? And would it make them think about reducing their use? Because in the future, in Canada, it's already implemented widely. We want to see health information on the packaging label as one of the prevention measures. And another thing that is widely diverse when we look at the different countries, so the countries are a bit small, but you see Switzerland on the high side with all the European countries, and there the reality is that cannabis is mixed with tobacco. Like almost everyone is using cannabis in the form of a joint mixed with tobacco, and that has additional health risks that can actually be mitigated when just leaving away the tobacco or changing the form to vaping or using cannabis as a tincture. And there the United States, maybe thanks to technology and all these vaping devices, is doing relatively well. Nevertheless, in the United States, what turns out, or what stands out is actually that they have a lot of concentrates that are used. So people are not interested in normal cannabis or weed, which is between maybe 10 to 20% of THC. So they want to have the high potency stuff. They want to have 40, 50%, or they want to have concentrates like oils, or cannabis edibles for those people who don't smoke and maybe want to have fun at festivals or with their group. That's another form. And the risk that comes with that is that when you're in a peer group, in a setting, people rarely look at the content of the THC, and especially at a festival where they may have used other illegal drugs or alcohol beforehand, there can be interactions with these edibles or other substances of high potency that lead to very undesirable effects. And this is also, we don't advocate for drug use, but for those people who decide to use drugs, we want to make drug use safer because we know it's more pleasurable drug use. When we look at cannabis use among youth, that's actually my main interest. We see that those people who have taken part in the survey last year, who indicated having used cannabis in the last year, so that was 37,000 people in our survey from the 23 countries. We see that on average people have used cannabis on 113 days in a year, and the standard deviation is high. That means that there is a huge range. Some people use it maybe just a few times, whereas others really show daily use. And we have about 1/4 who actually smoke on more than 200 days. That means regular use and could be potentially dangerous. But also there, we cannot just say from these numbers whether people are actually harming themselves or not. There are also, for example, indications, for example, an undiagnosed ADHD or people who are not willing to take the medication who actually can benefit from cannabis. And again, we don't know whether they smoke the cannabis or whether they inhale it or have another form of use. We don't know whether they are using the high potency THC or just the CBD cannabis. And the CBD or less than 1% THC cannabis can be used for many health things. Importantly, most people have answered 52 days, so that was the answer that was most given, and that shows us that most of the people that we reach actually use cannabis once a week, maybe when going out or when getting some recreation after stressful weeks. So also their occasional use is possible, and only about 1 in 10 people develop a cannabis use dependence. We see that actually most of the people, about half, have used less than half a gram a day, but also we have like 8% who use more than a gram on a usual day, and that's quite a lot. And we have seen that high potency cannabis is most prevalent in Israel, like about 86% said that this is the preferred form of use, in Finland and in the United States. And both in the United States and Canada, we see that these edibles, like the food infused with cannabis at really high levels of THC, are really popular. And that's basically just going back to the marketing, because in Europe, where the marketing doesn't take place and these substances are not available, no one orders it over the internet, because that's the other thing. Everyone could actually order drugs, no matter which drug, via the internet today. You don't need to be like cool anymore or have the right circle of friends. So there we can go away and say, like, it doesn't really help us to regulate cannabis in a way that it's not available, or any other drug, because actually nowadays these drugs are available. And the last point I want to mention with regard to youth substance use is that 1/3 of these people actually would like to reduce substance use or cannabis use in that manner in the next 12 months. But only 1 in 10 of these people say they would also seek help. So this is a huge gap, and we need to think about, as scientists and prevention researchers, how do we address this gap, and how do we make treatment for this population more accessible and maybe also more attractive. What we see and what I published as a paper on help-seeking behavior is that countries that have high prohibition, including the United States, for several drugs and like prison sentences for drug use or possession, they would actually change their help-seeking behavior if there would be drug policy liberalization. That means those with the most problematic use would be more likely to seek help in a state where they know that the policies are liberal. To conclude, I want to say that survey research is one of many forms of research that actually can help to identify the trends in substance use, especially with cannabis use. There are other methods as well, but most importantly, you always want to look into the target group or in a peer group, like how substance use patterns occur. And what we want to see is actually a delay of onset of cannabis use. And I'm getting recorded now, so I'm not sure whether I should say it, but my personal view on it is that we actually need to think about how to create safer spaces also for first-time cannabis use. For all these youth, for all these people, these young people who are interested in using. Because what happens when you use with your peer group that is all experienced and you join a group that you think is cool, is that you try and you have to say it's great, and potentially you do it the same day or the next day again and again, but overall the first-time cannabis use is not great. And you won't feel the right effect, and it's probably you're going to feel dizzy and whatever. So if this would happen in a safe setting, let's say here at Swissnex, with an innovation project, where we could invite people to actually get this first experience, and then maybe they need to take a questionnaire, and we talk with them about the experience, and we say, hey, maybe it was not so good today, but you can come back in a year and try again for free. So maybe that would help that people actually wait and delay their onset of actual use. And this is really important, not just because of the brain function, what Sarah will talk about, but also about all these functions that are, or these social moments that are missing, or getting a driver's license, and many things that other people do during adolescence. And I'm looking forward to be in San Francisco and to see what new technologies come up, both for vape devices and how to make like cannabis use safer, but also on the other hand, how to treat cannabis use disorder or problematic use when you think about virtual reality or AI and all these apps that can actually track substance use and that can maybe give you triggers whenever you get into a situation that is dangerous, that where you are more likely to use the substance if you don't want to use it. And so there are lots of possibilities, and what I would like to see more in research is actually innovation, because in the Bay Area it happens in technology and in industry, but not so much in research, also given the regulations that we face. But overall, I try to inspire people to get a bit more into progressive thinking and also away from these profit models, because I think what actually makes the most harm is the marketing and the advertisement that is happening around cannabis use and other substances. As soon as we get the message that this will help against like every kind of disease and every kind of mental health struggle, we actually blend people, and it's not real what we say to them anymore. So non-profit models also, for example, cannabis social clubs where communities actually build an environment and create a safe space where people can use substances like cannabis would be desirable, and I really hope that we can move forward into that direction in the future. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next speakers, we have time for maybe like one question. If anyone has a question. Yes.
If you could change anything about research or like obstacles that you face in research, how would you innovate this new experience with all of the money power?
I think the main and first point would really be to digitalize the whole drug use, to make it more accessible for research. It's not just cannabis, it's also, for example,